The start of a new year is the beginning of a time for new anniversaries. For example, 2022 means that movies from 1997 are now 25 years old. They can rent a car and everything. We decided to look back at the top 10 highest grossing films of 1997 to see what was popular then, and to see what we feel about those movies now, 25 years later. Let's get to it. The Full Monty. In a world of sci-fi movies and big budget blockbusters, The Full Monty was a surprise hit. It was a seemingly unremarkable British comedy on the surface. The entire joke is that some regular guys decide to do a strip show for cash, and yet it clearly grabbed people. The Full Monty is the underdog hit of 1997. In terms of quality, well, you don't hear people mention the movie all that often now, do you? The Fifth Element. Speaking of sci-fi movies, this is a bonkers film from Luc Besson. Mila Jovovich is quite good. Bruce Willis is solid. Gary Oldman chews every last bit of scenery, and then Chris Tucker comes by to chew the detritus left over when Oldman was done. It's a very goofy movie, but admittedly a fun one. My Best Friend's Wedding. The days of big stars making romantic comedies and them being big hits. Julia Roberts and Cameron Diaz in a slight rom-com? That doesn't happen these days. Of course, My Best Friend's Wedding is far from the best of that era anyway. Jim Carrey's comedy star had probably already peaked by 1997. Still, this was a huge hit based entirely on Carrey's cachet. He does his thing, people laugh. That said, what if Jim Carrey played a guy who couldn't lie, and that made 300 million worldwide? It's a totally whatever 90s movie. As Good as It Gets. Jack Nicholson and Helen Hunt both won Oscars. James L. Brooks hit once again with one of his talky dramedies. It's the last time he was able to make that work. You really have to be able to tolerate Nicholson's terrible character to enjoy this film, and we understand if you aren't able to stomach him. Air Force One. Oldman is back as another hammy villain. It's Die Hard on a plane, but the Bruce Willis part is Harrison Ford, and he's playing the President of the United States. That's a killer idea for an action movie. If you like that kind of film, definitely give Air Force One a watch. Tomorrow Never Dies. Pierce Brosnan's James Bond debut with GoldenEye was quite good. Then Tomorrow Never Dies came out and people said that wasn't as good. It only got worse from there. There's a reason people were excited for Daniel Craig when he took over and the series got gritty. Men in Black. There's a huge jump in box office from Tomorrow Never Dies to Men in Black. This movie made 589 million worldwide. It was deserving. It's the best blockbuster movie of 1997. It's clever, fun, a little gross, but in good ways, and just a strong sci-fi adventure. No wonder it spawned 2 sequels and a reboot. The Lost World, Jurassic Park. Speaking of spawning a franchise and a reboot, Jurassic Park is a classic. The Lost World is not that. It's a pretty fine sequel that makes you realize they are spinning their wheels a bit. Even though Steven Spielberg was back directing, The Lost World is a bit of a shrug. Titanic. Well, at this point, what more can we say? Titanic was a phenomenon. You may have seen it a dozen times in theater. You could not avoid hearing My Heart Will Go On. It won 11 Oscars, including Best Picture. For years, it was the highest grossing movie ever. Titanic was a true seismic cinematic event. 25 years later, that feels a little hard to wrap your head around. It isn't the best movie of the year. It's also not your typical blockbuster. At the time though, nothing hit like Titanic. We aren't trashing it by any means. What we are doing is pointing out how specific and of the moment it felt. What do you think about these, the top 10 highest grossing movies of 1997? Do you have a favorite? Do you have one you think's underrated, overrated? Let us know in the comments, and for more videos like this, be sure to subscribe to the Vents Magazine YouTube channel.